Private Luna Martinez had always been what you might generously call average. Back on Earth, she'd flipped burgers at Murphy's Diner, played third base for the local softball team with a batting average that could charitably be described as enthusiastic. And her biggest claim to fame was once catching a fly ball while eating a hot dog. So naturally, when the Galactic Defense Academy recruiter showed up promising adventure among the stars, Luna figured why not. What's the worst that could happen? Well, apparently the worst that could happen was ending up on training platform Sigma 7 with Drill Sergeant Vex screaming at her in 3 different languages, 2 of which she was pretty sure weren't meant for beings with only one throat. Sergeant Vex was what humans might describe as impressively terrifying. Standing 8 feet tall with 6 arms that moved independently like some kind of military octopus. His Kryptonian ancestry meant he could bench press a hover tank while simultaneously field stripping 4 different weapons and signing paperwork. His voice sounded like gravel being processed through a cement mixer. And his idea of a warm welcome was explaining exactly how many ways you could die during basic training. "Listen up, you collection of barely evolved space debris," Vex bellowed to the assembled recruits. "Today we're running live fire exercises. That means real ammunition, real explosions, and really real chances of becoming really dead. Questions?" Luna looked around at her fellow recruits. There was Pip, a nervous Glixian medic whose species looked like someone had crossed a grasshopper with an anxiety disorder. His compound eyes were already spinning in different directions, which Luna had learned was the Glixian equivalent of hyperventilating. Next to him stood Krex, a Zephyrian warrior who apparently came from a species that evolved from something resembling an armored rhino with anger management issues. Krex spent most of his time flexing muscles that humans didn't even have names for and making comments about how his people had conquered 17 star systems before breakfast. The training course looked like someone had designed an obstacle course specifically to violate several intergalactic safety regulations. Plasma turrets, gravity wells, spinning blades, and what appeared to be actual lava pits were scattered across a terrain that changed elevation more often than a politician changed positions. Martinez. Vex's voice cut through Luna's assessment of the various ways she was about to become cosmic dust. "You're up first. Try not to embarrass your entire species more than they already have." Luna stepped up to the starting line, which was helpfully marked with a sign reading point of no return in 17 different languages. The course stretched ahead of her like a fevered dream designed by someone with serious issues. "Begin." Vex roared. Luna started running, ducking under plasma bolts and leaping over pit traps with what she assumed was pure luck. About halfway through, she heard Vex shout "duck" from behind her. Now, any reasonable person would have immediately dropped to the ground. Any person with basic survival instincts would have hit the deck faster than a politician dropping campaign promises. Any person with even rudimentary military training would have known that when a drill sergeant yells "duck," you duck. Luna, however, had spent too many years playing softball. When someone yelled about a duck, her instinct was to look up and see where the ball was coming from. So she looked up. And saw a chunk of superheated shrapnel from an exploded plasma turret spinning directly toward her face at roughly the speed of really bad news. Without thinking, Luna reached up and caught it. Bare-handed. The chunk of metal, which was approximately the temperature of a small star, and moving fast enough to punch through standard battle armor, that slapped into her palm with a sound like a baseball hitting a catcher's mitt. The entire training ground went silent. Even the automated death trap seemed to pause in confusion. Luna looked down at the glowing piece of metal in her hand, which should have turned her into a small pile of ash with regrets, then looked back at Vex. "Sorry, Sergeant," she said, tossing the shrapnel aside like it was a used tissue. "Thought you said there was a duck." 30 minutes later, Luna found herself in the medical bay, which looked less like a hospital and more like the inside of a very expensive spaceship that had been designed by someone who really liked the color blue. Dr. Quinn, the facility's chief physician, was running every scanner in his considerable arsenal over Luna's hands while making sounds that she assumed meant either fascinating or time to call the coroner in Nexarian. Dr. Quinn looked like someone had taken a praying mantis, given it 4 eyes, dressed it in medical scrubs, and then taught it to be really, really concerned about everything. His 4 eyes moved independently, which meant he could look disapproving in multiple directions simultaneously. "This is impossible," Dr. Quinn muttered, checking his readings for the 5th time. "The metal fragment reached temperatures of over 3,000 degrees Kelvin. Your species' cellular structure should have been completely destroyed on contact." "Maybe I have really good reflexes?" Luna suggested, trying to be helpful. All 4 of Dr. Quinn's eyes focused on her with the kind of intensity usually reserved for examining suspicious medical symptoms or tax audits. Reflexes do not allow organic tissue to handle superheated metal fragments. Reflexes do not alter the fundamental laws of thermodynamics. Pip, who had apparently appointed himself as Luna's unofficial medical support team, was bouncing around the medical bay like a caffeinated cricket. "But she did it. I saw it. She just reached up and grabbed it like it was nothing." "Thank you for that medical assessment, Medic Pip," Dr. Quinn said dryly. "Perhaps you could bounce somewhere else while I try to figure out how Private Martinez is still alive." Luna wiggled her fingers experimentally. They felt perfectly normal, which was weird because by all rights they should have been a small pile of carbon at this point. "Look, Doc, maybe I just got lucky. Sometimes these things happen, right?" Dr. Quinn made a noise that sounded like a deflating balloon having an existential crisis. "Lucky. Yes, perhaps luck is now a measurable medical phenomenon." While Dr. Quinn continued his investigation into the medical impossibility that was Luna's continued existence, Luna found herself thinking about home. Back on Earth, she'd been spectacularly unremarkable. She'd grown up in Nebraska, which was about as exciting as it sounded. Her biggest achievements included a high school diploma earned with what could generously be called adequate grades, a 6-month stint at community college studying hospitality management, and a brief but memorable career as a waitress that ended when she accidentally set the restaurant's kitchen on fire trying to make flam. "So," Pip said, having bounced his way back over to Luna's examination table, "do humans normally catch superheated metal with their bare hands?" "Not that I know of," Luna said. "I mean, back home we mostly just caught baseballs and the occasional cold." "Baseballs?" "Yeah, you know, sports equipment. Round thing, you hit it with a stick, then you run around in circles while people yell at you. It's great fun." Pip's compound eyes spun in what Luna had learned was the Glixian equivalent of confusion. "Your species trains for combat by hitting round objects with sticks." "Well, when you put it like that, it sounds weird." "Everything about your species sounds weird," came a voice from the medical bay entrance. Jake Riley, another human recruit, strutted in with his usual overconfident swagger. Jake had apparently been some kind of hotshot athlete back on Earth, and he never let anyone forget it. "But we're the weird ones who don't die when we're supposed to, so I guess that counts for something." "Riley," Dr. Quinn said without looking up from his scanners, "what brings you to my medical bay? Please tell me you haven't also violated the laws of physics." "Nothing that dramatic, Doc. Just thought I'd check on Martinez here. Word's getting around about her little catching exhibition." "Great," Luna muttered. "Just what I needed, a reputation for being the weirdo who catches deadly space debris." Emma Torres, the 3rd human in their training group, peeked around the medical bay door. Emma was what people politely called intensely intellectual, which meant she knew way too much about everything and wasn't afraid to share. "Actually, Luna, your reaction time and hand-eye coordination display suggests some kind of enhanced kinesthetic processing. It's quite remarkable from a neurological standpoint." "Thanks, Emma. That makes me feel so much better about being a medical impossibility." Dr. Quinn finally looked up from his scanners, all 4 eyes focusing on Luna with an expression that suggested he was trying to solve a puzzle that was missing several pieces. "Private Martinez, I'm going to need to run some additional tests. Your cellular structure appears completely normal, but normal cells do not behave the way yours just did. Can't wait, Luna said. Nothing I love more than being poked and prodded by alien medical equipment. This is not a joke, Private. If humans possess some kind of unknown resistance to thermal damage, it could change how we approach training protocols for your entire species. Outside the medical bay, Luna could hear Sergeant Vex's voice echoing through the corridors as he addressed the other recruits. Even through the walls, his frustration was palpable. I have been training soldiers for 15 years, Vex was shouting. I have trained warriors from 73 different species. I have seen recruits survive plasma fire, gravity crushers, and thermonuclear explosions. But I have never seen anyone catch superheated shrapnel with their bare hands and then apologize for it. Luna grinned. I think I'm starting to like it here. 3 weeks later, the Galactic Defense Academy was experiencing what Admiral Zorth diplomatically referred to as unprecedented training anomalies and what Sergeant Vex less diplomatically called complete chaos caused by these impossible humans. Admiral Zorth was a cephalopoid, which meant he looked like someone had taken an octopus, given it delusions of grandeur, and then put it in charge of military operations. His species had conquered half the galaxy through superior intellect and strategic planning, which made the current situation particularly frustrating for him. Explain to me again, Admiral Zorth said, his tentacles writhing in what Luna had learned was the cephalopoid equivalent of a stress headache, how Private Riley survived direct exposure to plasma fire during yesterday's training exercise. Sergeant Vex, who had developed what appeared to be a permanent twitch in his left eye since the humans arrived, consulted his report with the enthusiasm of someone reading their own death warrant. According to the incident report, sir, Private Riley was caught in a plasma containment failure that should have resulted in third-degree burns across 60% of his body. And? No. He walked out completely unharmed, sir. When questioned, he stated that he felt a little warm and asked if we had any sunscreen. Admiral Zorth's tentacles stopped writhing and went completely still, which was generally considered a bad sign among those who knew cephalopoid body language. Sunscreen. Yes, sir. Apparently it's some kind of protective substance humans use to prevent solar radiation damage on their home planet. He asked for sunscreen. After being exposed to weapons-grade plasma? That is correct, sir. In the training facility's main corridor, Luna was walking with Emma and Jake toward their next session, which was ominously labeled Advanced Survival Techniques on the schedule. Advanced usually meant more things that could kill you in military speak. So Jake was saying with his usual cocky grin, turns out I'm basically immune to heat now. Pretty cool, right? Pretty cool is not how I'd describe nearly getting incinerated, Emma replied, checking her datapad for their training schedule. Although your thermal resistance does suggest some kind of adaptive response mechanism that's worth studying. Emma, not everything needs to be studied, Luna said. Sometimes weird stuff just happens. Weird stuff doesn't just happen, Luna. There are underlying mechanisms, evolutionary pressures, biological adaptations. We're displaying capabilities that shouldn't exist according to standard galactic biology. Their conversation was interrupted by the sound of running feet and panicked chittering. Pip came bouncing down the corridor at high speed, his compound eyes spinning in different directions. Luna, Luna, Pip called out, skidding to a stop in front of them. You need to come see this. They're talking about you in the command center. Talking about us how? Jake asked, suddenly looking less cocky and more concerned. Not good talking. Bad talking. Worried talking. They think you're all broken. Luna, Emma, and Jake exchanged glances. Define broken, Emma said. Pip's eyes spun faster, which was never a good sign. Broken like maybe your species is defective. Broken like maybe you shouldn't be allowed in the military. Broken like maybe they should send you all home before you break something important. That's ridiculous, Jake said. We're doing great in training. Better than great, actually. That's the problem. Pip squeaked. You're doing too great. Nobody's supposed to survive the things you keep surviving. It's making everyone nervous. Luna had been afraid this might happen. Back home, being the person who caught fly balls while eating hot dogs had been considered mildly amusing. Here, being the person who caught superheated shrapnel with her bare hands was apparently causing diplomatic incidents. They made their way to the advanced training facility, which looked like someone had taken a normal gymnasium and then asked a sadistic engineer to make it more dangerous. The obstacle course had been upgraded since Luna's first day and now included gravity manipulation fields, sonic disruptors, and what appeared to be actual meteor showers. Today, Sergeant Vex announced to the assembled recruits, "We're testing your survival capabilities under extreme conditions." The course has been designed to push each species to their absolute limits. Krex, the Zephyrian warrior, cracked his knuckles with a sound like breaking rocks. Finally, a real challenge. My people have trained in volcanic wastelands since we were strong enough to walk. Yeah, well, my people trained by dodging traffic and dealing with customer service complaints, Luna muttered. So we're probably about even. The first part of the course involved navigating through a field of what the training manual cheerfully described as low-yield explosive devices. Luna watched as Krex charged through with typical Zephyrian brutality, his armored hide deflecting most of the blast damage. Pip carefully calculated the optimal path and managed to avoid most of the explosions through precise movements. Then it was Luna's turn. Halfway through the explosive field, Luna realized she could sense where the next blast was going to come from. Not hear it, not see it, just know it. She started moving before the devices even activated, weaving through the explosions like she was dancing with them. Behind her, she heard Emma's voice, "Luna, how did you know where those were going to explode?" "Lucky guess?" Luna called back, though she was starting to suspect luck had very little to do with it. The second part of the course was a zero-gravity combat simulation. Emma, who had never shown any particular athletic ability, suddenly began calculating trajectory mathematics in real time, predicting exactly where she needed to be to avoid incoming projectiles while simultaneously figuring out the optimal angle for return fire. "Torres," Vex shouted, "what's your background in ballistic calculations?" "I worked at a library, Sergeant." Emma called back while performing a physics-defying spiral maneuver that would have impressed a professional pilot. "But I did read a lot of books about math." By the time the training session was over, Sergeant Vex was staring at the three humans with an expression that Luna was pretty sure meant, "What the hell is wrong with you people?" in any language. "Private Martinez," Vex said slowly, "you just navigated an explosive field by predicting detonations that are specifically designed to be unpredictable." "Good reflexes?" Luna suggested weakly. "Private Torres, you performed ballistic calculations that require advanced computer systems to process." "I've always been good with numbers?" Emma tried. "Nine." "And Private Riley, you survived thermal exposure that should have left you as a small pile of carbon." Jake shrugged. "I've always run hot." Vex looked like he was developing another eye twitch. "Report to Dr. Quinn immediately. All of you. I need to file a report with command, and I have no idea what I'm going to tell them." As they walked toward the medical bay, Luna couldn't shake the feeling that their lucky breaks were about to become a much bigger problem. 6 months later, Luna stood in formation with the rest of her graduating class, wearing a dress uniform that made her look like she was cosplaying as a space marine from a budget science fiction movie. The graduation ceremony was taking place in the Academy's main auditorium, which had been designed to accommodate representatives from 47 different species and therefore looked like the inside of a very expensive airport terminal. Admiral Zorth was giving the traditional commencement speech, which largely consisted of reminding everyone how dangerous the galaxy was and how most of them would probably be dead within a year. It was exactly as inspiring as it sounded. Today, I. Admiral Zorth intoned, his tentacles arranged in what Luna had learned was the cephalopoid version of formal posture. You graduate as the finest warriors the galaxy has to offer. You have been trained in the most advanced combat techniques, equipped with the most sophisticated weapons, and prepared for the most challenging missions in known space. Luna glanced sideways at Jake, who was trying not to laugh. Emma was taking detailed notes because Emma took detailed notes about everything, including grocery lists and weather reports. The graduation exercise was supposed to be a massive war game simulation against the Void Raiders, who were apparently the galaxy's version of space pirates if space pirates were significantly more homicidal and had better technology. The simulation was designed to test everything they'd learned about combined arms tactics, interspecies cooperation, and not dying horribly in combat. The Void Raiders, Admiral Zorth continued, represent the greatest threat to galactic peace and stability. They are ruthless, technologically advanced, and completely without honor. In today's simulation, you will face their tactics and learn to defeat them. What Admiral Zorth didn't mention was that approximately 30 minutes into his speech, the Academy's early warning system started detecting actual Void Raider ships approaching the station. What he also didn't mention was that this was because he didn't know about it yet, since the communications officer was currently trying very hard not to panic while figuring out how to tell his commanding officer that their training simulation had just become horrifyingly real. The first sign that something was wrong came when the lights in the auditorium flickered and the station's defensive shields activated with a sound like the universe's largest electric razor. Admiral Zorth paused in his speech and touched his communication device. Luna couldn't hear what was being said, but she could see all of his tentacles go rigid, which was generally not a good sign in cephalopoid body language. Ladies, gentlemen, and sentient beings of various classifications, Admiral Zorth announced, his voice carefully controlled, we are experiencing a minor technical difficulty with our simulation systems. Please proceed to your assigned battle stations in an orderly fashion. That doesn't sound like a technical difficulty, Emma whispered. That sounds like we're about to be attacked. Maybe it's part of the simulation? Jake suggested hopefully. Their question was answered when the station shuddered under weapons fire and emergency klaxons began blaring in 17 different languages, all of which roughly translated to, "We're all going to die." Sergeant Vex's voice cut through the chaos over the intercom system, all combat-ready personnel to battle stations. This is not a drill. Repeat, this is not a drill. Void Raiders are attacking the station. The auditorium erupted into controlled panic as hundreds of alien military personnel rushed toward their assigned positions. Luna found herself swept along with the crowd, trying to keep track of Jake and Emma in the chaos. Martinez, Riley, Torres. Vex's voice boomed over the noise. You three are assigned to evacuation duty, yet to the civilian shelters, and help coordinate refugee transport. Evacuation duty? Jake protested. Come on, Sarge, we've trained for this. You've trained for simulations, Riley. This is real combat against the most dangerous enemy in the galaxy. The three of you will stay with the non-combat personnel where you'll be safe. Luna looked at the chaos around them, at alien soldiers scrambling to defensive positions while panicked civilians fled toward the shelter areas. Through the auditorium's massive windows, she could see Void Raider ships approaching the station like dark angels of death with really impressive weapon arrays. Safe, Luna said. Right. The three humans made their way toward the civilian evacuation area, but as they moved through the station's corridors, it became clear that the battle was not going well for the defenders. Emergency lighting cast everything in red shadows, and the constant rumble of weapons fire made the deck plates vibrate under their feet. They reached the main evacuation area to find hundreds of terrified alien civilians crowded into what was essentially a reinforced cafeteria. Pip was there, trying to provide medical assistance to injured personnel while looking like he was about to pass out from stress. Luna. Pip called out when he saw them. The defenses aren't working. The Void Raiders have some kind of adaptive shielding that neutralizes our weapons. Through the evacuation area's reinforced windows, Luna could see the battle raging outside. Academy defensive positions were being systematically destroyed by Void Raider forces that seemed to anticipate every tactical move the defenders made. "This is insane," Emma said, watching the one-sided battle. "It's like they know exactly what we're going to do before we do it." "That's because they do," said a voice behind them. They turned to see Dr. Quinn, his 4 eyes tracking different aspects of the battle simultaneously. The Void Raiders use predictive combat algorithms. They analyze enemy tactics in real time and adapt their responses accordingly. It's why they're so effective against conventional forces. "So what do we do?" Jake asked. Luna watched another defensive position get vaporized and made a decision that was probably going to get them all killed. "We stop being conventional." "Luna," Emma said carefully, "what are you thinking?" "I'm thinking that everyone out there is fighting exactly the way they were trained to fight. Textbook tactics, by the book strategies, everything completely predictable." And Luna grinned, and it was not a particularly reassuring expression. "And nobody trained us to fight by the book, because nobody knows what book humans fight by." Jake's eyes lit up with understanding. "Are you suggesting we ignore our evacuation orders and charge directly into combat against the most dangerous enemy in the galaxy using completely improvised tactics?" "That's exactly what I'm suggesting." Emma adjusted her glasses with the methodical precision of someone about to commit herself to a terrible idea. "You know what? Statistically speaking, we're probably going to die anyway. Might as well die doing something interesting." And with that, the 3 humans headed directly toward the sounds of battle, leaving behind an evacuation area full of aliens who were about to witness something that would change their understanding of human capabilities forever. What happened next would later be studied in military academies across the galaxy as either the most brilliant tactical innovation in recorded history or the most successful example of organized insanity ever documented. Luna, Jake, and Emma arrived at the main battle area to find complete chaos. Void Raider boarding parties had breached the station's hull in 17 different locations, their adaptive combat algorithms allowing them to counter every defensive strategy the Academy's forces employed. Alien soldiers were falling back on all fronts, their sophisticated weapons and tactics proving useless against an enemy that could predict and counter their every move. "Okay," Luna said, surveying the battlefield, "here's the plan. Jake, you're going to set yourself on fire and run directly at their command position." "I like this plan already," Jake grinned. "Emma, you're going to calculate impossible firing solutions and start shooting around corners. Technically, the ricochet angles would require compensating for gravitational variance, atmospheric density, and..." "Emma, math later, shooting now." "Got it." "Min." "What about you, Luna?" Jake asked. Luna cracked her knuckles and smiled with the kind of expression that had probably terrified prey animals on Earth for millions of years. "I'm going to do what humans do best. Which is something completely stupid that somehow works." They split up, and within seconds, the entire nature of the battle changed. Jake charged directly into a group of Void Raiders while literally on fire, screaming something about Earth sports teams that was probably not appropriate for military communications. The Void Raiders' predictive algorithms had never encountered a combatant who used self-immolation as a diversionary tactic, and their confusion gave Jake the opportunity to grab their weapons and start using them in ways that definitely violated their operating manuals. Emma found a position behind a barricade and began calculating ricochet patterns that allowed her to hit targets she couldn't see by bouncing shots off walls, ceilings, and what appeared to be the emotional state of nearby aliens. When questioned later, she would explain that she was just following the math, as if the laws of physics were merely suggestions that she was free to interpret creatively. Luna, meanwhile, had discovered that her ability to predict incoming attacks worked just as well against Void Raider weapons as it did against training equipment. She moved through the battlefield like she was dancing with destruction itself, catching energy blasts and throwing them back, redirecting explosive devices toward enemy positions, and generally behaving like someone who had taken the concept of dodge, duck, dip, dive, and dodge, and elevated it to the level of high art. The effect on both Allied and enemy forces was immediate and dramatic. Void Raiders, who had built their entire military doctrine around predictive combat algorithms, found themselves facing opponents whose actions couldn't be predicted because the humans themselves didn't know what they were going to do next. Dr. Quinn, who had been observing the battle from the medical station, was frantically taking readings with every scanner at his disposal. "This is impossible," he muttered to Pip, who was watching Luna redirect plasma bolts with her bare hands. "According to every known law of biology, physics, and common sense, they should all be dead." "Maybe humans don't follow known laws?" Pip suggested. "Apparently not." Admiral Zorth, who had been coordinating the defense from the command center, found himself watching his tactical displays in complete bewilderment. "Commander," he said to his aide, "explain to me what I'm seeing." "Sir, it appears that 3 human recruits have single-handedly turned the tide of the battle using tactics that don't exist in any military database." "Tactics that don't exist?" "That is correct, sir. Private Riley appears to be using thermodynamic manipulation combined with psychological warfare. Private Torres is employing ballistic calculations that our computers can't replicate. And Private Martinez—" Yes. "Private Martinez appears to be catching enemy weapons fire and throwing it back." Admiral Zorth was quiet for a long moment, but his tentacles moving in complex patterns that suggested he was processing information that didn't fit into any of his existing mental frameworks. "Get me Dr. Quinn immediately. I need to understand what these humans are." 30 minutes later, the battle was over. The Void Raiders, faced with opponents whose actions couldn't be predicted, calculated, or countered, had done something unprecedented in their military history. They retreated. Not just from the immediate battle, but from the entire sector, leaving behind confused allies and a great deal of damaged equipment. In the aftermath, as medical teams tended to the wounded and engineers assessed the damage, Dr. Quinn presented his findings to Admiral Zorth in a report that would reshape the galaxy's understanding of human capabilities. "Based on my analysis," Dr. Quinn explained, his 4 eyes focusing intently on his data displays, "humans don't just adapt to extreme situations. They appear to actively thrive in them." "Explain." "Their home planet, Earth, is what we would classify as a Class 12 death world. Extreme weather variations, seismic instability, atmospheric toxicity in certain regions, and a biosphere where literally everything is trying to kill everything else. Humans evolved not just to survive in this environment, but to become its apex predators." Admiral Zorth's tentacles writhed thoughtfully. "Continue." "Their neurological structure is optimized for what they call fight or flight responses, but it's more accurate to describe it as fight, flight, and 15 other options that nobody else would think of. When faced with impossible odds, human brain chemistry actually becomes more efficient, not less." "So they become smarter when they're about to die?" "Smarter, faster, more creative, and apparently willing to attempt solutions that violate several laws of physics. Private Martinez's ability to catch superheated projectiles isn't supernatural, Admiral. It's the result of evolved reflexes designed for a planet where catching falling objects was a survival skill." "And Private Riley's thermal resistance?" "Humans evolved from organisms that survived multiple ice ages and volcanic periods. Their cellular structure includes dormant adaptations that activate under extreme stress. Private Riley didn't become immune to heat, Admiral. He temporarily became the human equivalent of volcanic rock." Admiral Zorth was quiet for several minutes, processing the implications. Finally, he spoke. "Dr. Quinn, in your professional opinion, what does this mean for the galaxy's understanding of human military capabilities?" Dr. Quinn's expression suggested he was contemplating something that was either wonderful or terrifying, and possibly both. Admiral, I believe we may have been categorizing humans incorrectly. They're not a newly evolved species that needs protection. They're the galaxy's ultimate adaptive predators, and we've been training them. Dr. Quinn's expression suggested he was contemplating something that was either wonderful or terrifying, and possibly both. Admiral, I believe we may have been categorizing humans incorrectly. They're not a newly evolved species that needs protection. They're the galaxy's ultimate adaptive predators, and we've been training them. 3 months after what military historians would diplomatically refer to as the Academy incident, Luna found herself standing at a podium in the same auditorium where graduation day had gone so spectacularly sideways. She was wearing her dress uniform again, but this time it came with significantly more ribbons and a rank insignia that she was pretty sure meant congratulations. You're now officially terrifying. The auditorium was packed with representatives from across the galaxy, all of whom had come to hear the valedictorian speech from the human who had single-handedly redefined galactic military doctrine by catching shrapnel and asking if there were any ducks around. Fellow graduates, distinguished faculty, and assorted alien dignitaries who are probably still trying to figure out what the hell just happened. Luna began, which was not the traditional opening for a valedictorian speech, but then again, nothing about her military career had been particularly traditional. When I first arrived at the Galactic Defense Academy, I was told that humans were the galaxy's newest species, and that we had a lot to learn from our more experienced galactic neighbors. This was absolutely true. We learned that Craxonians have 6 arms, which makes them excellent at multitasking. We learned that Zephyrians are naturally armored, which makes them ideal for frontal assaults. And we learned that Void Raiders use predictive combat algorithms, which makes them extremely dangerous to anyone fighting by conventional tactics. In the audience, Admiral Zorth's tentacles shifted nervously. Sergeant Vex, who had been promoted to senior drill instructor specifically for surviving human recruits, managed what might have been a proud smile despite his species' facial structure not being designed for human expressions. We also learned, Luna continued, that humans have a few tricks of our own, like the ability to catch superheated metal fragments because we spent millions of years evolving on a planet that was basically trying to murder us at all times, like the ability to perform impossible calculations under pressure because our ancestors had, to figure out how to kill woolly mammoths with pointy sticks, and like the ability to ignore completely reasonable survival instincts because, let's face it, if our species was good at survival instincts, we never would have invented things like extreme sports, fast food, or reality television. Jake and Emma, sitting in the front row with their own collection of medals and promotions, were trying not to laugh. Pip, who had been awarded a commendation for medical services during the battle, was bouncing slightly in his seat with what Luna had learned was Glixian pride. So here's what I learned during my time at the Academy, Luna said. The galaxy is a big, dangerous place full of species that have been perfecting the art of warfare for thousands of years. They have superior technology, advanced tactics, and centuries of military experience. They know exactly how to fight efficiently, effectively, and by the book. She paused, looking out at the assembled crowd of alien military personnel, diplomats, and what she suspected were intelligence officers from at least 12 different species. Lucky for all of us, humans never learned to read that book. The audience erupted in what Luna was pretty sure was applause, though some species expressed approval through methods that sounded more like industrial accidents. After the ceremony, Luna found herself in Admiral Zorth's office, receiving her first assignment as a newly commissioned officer. The assignment packet was surprisingly thick, which was usually not a good sign in military contexts. "Congratulations, Lieutenant Martinez," Admiral Zorth said, using her new rank for the first time. "You've been selected for a very special assignment." "Let me guess," Luna said, flipping through the packet. "Something involving impossible odds and probably getting shot at a lot." The Corvani system has been experiencing a civil war for the past 50 years. Two ancient alien civilizations, both technologically advanced, both completely convinced that they're in the right, and both absolutely determined to exterminate each other. Every diplomatic mission has failed. Every military intervention has made things worse. The situation is considered completely hopeless. Luna looked up from the assignment packet with a grin that Admiral Zorth was beginning to recognize as distinctly dangerous. So you're sending in the humans? We're sending in you specifically, along with a support team of other human personnel who have demonstrated similar, unconventional problem-solving abilities. And our mission parameters? Stop a 50-year civil war using any means necessary. You have complete tactical autonomy and unlimited resource allocation. Luna closed the packet and stood up, cracking her knuckles in a gesture that had become her signature move. Well, Admiral, somebody's going to have to duck. 6 months later, the Corvani system was experiencing something unprecedented in its recorded history: peace. The details of how Lieutenant Martinez and her team had accomplished this were classified at the highest levels. Though rumors persisted about creative applications of human psychology, unconventional uses of recreational explosives, and what one witness described as the most terrifying group therapy session in galactic history. The official report, filed by Luna herself, contained only one line: problem solved, requesting next assignment. What the report didn't mention was that humanity had quietly become the galaxy's go-to species for impossible situations. When the Rigellian trade wars reached a stalemate that threatened galactic commerce, they sent in the humans. When the Andromedan border crisis escalated to the point where 3-star systems were about to declare mutual annihilation, they sent in the humans. When a rogue artificial intelligence gained control of a dreadnought fleet and started composing really bad poetry at the universe, they definitely sent in the humans. The phrase "sending in the humans" had become galactic shorthand for "it's about to get weird, but it'll probably work out." And Luna Martinez, the former fast food worker from Nebraska who once caught a fly ball while eating a hot dog, had become the galaxy's unofficial ambassador of controlled chaos. In her personal log, which would eventually become required reading at military academies across known space, Luna wrote, "Turns out the galaxy is full of problems that can't be solved with superior technology, advanced tactics, or centuries of experience. Sometimes you need someone who doesn't know enough to realize that what they're about to attempt is impossible. Sometimes you need someone who's willing to look up when the drill sergeant yells duck. And sometimes, yeah, you just need someone who's spent their entire evolutionary history learning to catch things that are trying to kill them." The log entry ended with what had become Luna's personal motto: duck. What duck? Oh, that duck. And somewhere in the vast expanse of space, on planets where impossible conflicts had been resolved by impossible solutions, but alien historians were making note of the day humanity had looked up at the universe and said, "Hold my beer." The galaxy, it turned out, had been waiting for someone exactly that crazy.